And welcome back to a Medicine Buddha Meditations. This is number 5 of 6 short guided meditations to really just help us center ourselves. This is inspired by the fact that we're back into another period of lockdown, and people might be finding worries and anxieties are beginning to become somewhat even more overwhelming. And what we're seeking to do here is really just to declutch, come back into the body, move away from the thinking center. We can spend a lot of time ruminating around our thoughts, and those thoughts can turn around problems and anxieties and fears for the future, which haunt us, and those things can make us unwell and begin to damage our relationships with others and also with ourselves as well. So what we've been doing is learning to ground ourselves in the body using the breath, and more recently using sound, using the vibration in the body, and also we were using the voice as well, part of the creating that sort of drone for a chanting sound. And last time we were using the sense of sight in order to anchor ourselves, and we were changing how we saw, using that very wide vision to begin with, and then as we tilted the head down, we narrowed that vision to so that we could look at something in detail. And as we alternated between those two ways of seeing, we were going more into that sense of seeing. And we're going to keep on with that theme, but this time we're going to shift sense. We're going to move into the sense of hearing, the sensory objects of sounds, and we're immersed into a world of sounds, and we might also be immersed into a realm of silence as well. And perhaps just to say one or two things about this act of hearing. One of the things is that both sound and silence are both things that we can listen to. So we may think, oh, well, I have to be somewhere where there's some sound going on. We don't actually, even if we were in a really quiet place. In fact, even in very quiet places, there are still sounds, even of our own breath. And if we move, for example, like clothing or footsteps and so on. But even if we ourselves are very still, and even if we hold our breath, and it's maybe silent, or it may appear to be silent, we can still listen to silence as well. The act of listening is not dependent on what is being heard. But the act of listening is an act of opening up, and this opening up is something that also brings in the body. It's embodied, and listening is an embodied activity. And we're going to be using this as part of this meditation. And the other point I want to make about this is that hopefully, if we've been practicing a little bit with the other meditations, particularly with the breath, as we've been visualizing the breath entering into the body, if you think about it, for the breath to enter in and sweep down through the body cavity down to the soles of the feet as we breathe in, and as we breathe out, it then reverses its direction and comes up, sweeps up through the body and then out. It sort of presupposes that there's a spaciousness within the body through which the breath can move. And when we come onto the sounds, such as, for example, when we had the hum and then we had the haw sound as well, there also has to be a space within which that vibration and that sound can actually resonate as well. So almost in a sort of consciousness, imaginative way, the body is carrying within itself a spaciousness. And if, even as I'm speaking now, if we become aware of how our body is, how our body feels internally, so to myself as a subject, I happen to be sitting in a chair at the moment with a laptop on my knee, but I can also be aware that even as I speak, I can feel my chest vibrating slightly, but also I can feel my feet on the floor, and I can feel the muscles in my legs. And if I pay attention, I can also feel the sensation of the clothing on my body, on my torso, around my arms and shoulders, and on my chest and so forth. And how as I make those very slight movements, and I can feel the clothing move across my skin. And there's that feeling of tactile sensation and vibration and sound and hearing and even seeing takes place within a spaciousness, takes place within a space. And so what we're going to do for this exercise is we're first of all going to reconnect with that spaciousness within which the hearing takes place. And this might be a little bit tricky at first, but not to worry. The best way to explore this is to do it. And the best way to find out about and reconnect with this spaciousness is actually to do it. But we're actually going to also begin by using the breath again. So if you remember from the full body breathing, which was the first meditation in this series, what we did was we gained, as it were, a good posture. And if you remember, we use our little trick of having an imaginary cord from the top of our heads, almost like a puppet, or that is pulled up. We imagine that string from that cord or that thread at the top of our head just pulling up, and as it pulls up, it pulls the skull up, and it lengthens the neck, and it lengthens the spine. And if we're standing up, for example, or we're sitting on a chair like a dining chair, for example, if we're not sitting too low, then we can feel that our spine lengthens, and we get that nice S-shaped curve in our spine. And if we just roll the shoulders back 2 or 3 times, make sure that we're not holding any tension in the shoulders, then perhaps already if we allow ourselves to become aware of the thorax and of the torso, perhaps as the muscles hold the position, rather like a dancer who's holding a position, but holding lightly, perhaps we can already feel that there's a certain capaciousness within our form, within our physical form. And as our awareness opens out into the arms and into our legs, we can perhaps also be aware of that spaciousness, that capaciousness there too. So we can enhance this again by if we do that full body breathing as we take the breath in. Sure, we're going to take the breath in and down, sweep it down through the body, but just allow our attention to become aware of the space itself through which that breath appears to be moving as it moves, sweeps down through the body, through the torso, through the legs, and right the way down into the soles of the feet. And then when we breathe out, it reverses the other way. Okay? So let's just do a couple of breaths, which is the full body breathing again. So we just exhale, and then we inhale through the nose. The breath sweeps down through the body, through the legs to the soles of the feet, and then we reverse. And we visualize that breath coming up through the body again, and it sweeps out. And we breathe in again, down to the soles of the feet, and then breathe out. And just be aware of the space through which that breath is now moving, and then relax from that. Okay, so that's hopefully primed us a little bit, just to make us a bit more sensitive to the internal capaciousness of the physical form of the body. Just as much as we can, just allow that to stay in awareness. Don't worry too much, but just it's there. We can come back to it. We have that feeling of now being a little more in our bodies. And what we're going to do is that we're going to breathe in again, and we breathe in to the soles of the feet. And out of that spaciousness, we are then going to go into the listening. And when I say go into the listening, imagine that we are in a room that is quiet, and very faintly we think we hear something. And you know how it is when if a sound is faint, or we're trying to, as it were, go discover the detail of that sound. What is that sound? And almost in a way, the head comes forward a little bit. We actually lean into the listening, don't we? Rather in the same way that, if you heard your neighbours arguing, for example, without putting a glass against the wall and your ear against the glass, which might be a little bit too much, but we just sort of think, oh my goodness, what are they arguing about? But we can hear there are voices, but we can't hear the words. And so, we lean into it, don't we? As if we're trying to and as we lean into it, we open up into that spaciousness and we hold it there. And that's what we're going to do. So we don't need to imagine the neighbors arguing or anything else. All we're going to do is we're going to breathe in. And as we breathe in, we then at the full inhalation, we're going to just hold it there for a couple of seconds, maybe 3 seconds. And then we're just going to lean into that listening. And then we're going to breathe out, and then we come out of that listening. And then we're going to breathe in, we'll have a little rest, and then we'll breathe in. And then we just lean into that listening, and then we breathe out. And then we'll take a little rest in between. And even in the rest in between, just see if we can, again, just focus on the listening, but without forcing it, please. So we do hold to it, we lean into it at the full breath, but when we come out of it, we just rest in the act and the function of listening itself, and just see if we can hold it there. Okay. So just take a moment and exhale. Then inhale. And lean into the listening. And exhale. And still stay with the listening, but gently. Breathe normally. Just sit in the listening. And exhale. Inhale. Lean into the listening. And exhale. Rest in the listening. Breathe normally. Allow yourself to sink into that listening. Exhale. Breathe in. Lean into the listening. And exhale. And breathe normally. And just stay with the listening. Now, for the last 2 breaths that we're going to do, when we lean into the listening, see if we can almost disappear into the listening. What I mean by that is that we allow ourselves to be so engrossed in the listening that we almost forget ourselves. Or even better, we do forget ourselves just for a moment. Okay, so breathe out, exhale. Inhale. Now lean in. And exhale. And relax, but stay in the listening. And exhale. breathe in. Lean in. And exhale. And relax. Okay, and breathe normally. Well, remember it's advised that we practice these meditations a little bit each day. Perhaps at different times. You can do this one and some of the others as well, just to encourage ourselves and develop that habit of settling in, moving away from the thinking center so that we can become more rested and more centered in our body and the functions of the body. Okay, and we'll see you next week for the last in this series. Thank you.